Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Got my coffee here. It's so important when you're doing this kind of thing to replenish your fluids constantly be going over to hit the weed, You got to stay on top of this shit. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. How's everybody doing? This is the chat portion where if you want to say hi or whatever. Oh, I should make sure it's actually working. Um, that's where you would come in handy. Uh, I don't know what I'm talking about. Um, let's see. God, I got so many annoying things on here. Here we go. Let's see what's going on. How's this sound? How about that ASMR? Get that weed out of there. Ah, sounds good. Every once in a while, someone will compliment me. Oh, oh. Someone will compliment me on my voice, and it's just great. I can't get enough. It's probably like why I do this at all. Just to impress those 3 people that mentioned my voice. But it's actually how I got started, like, doing poetry readings and playing music out, and then getting into podcasting is when I was on the Central Labor Council, I would read the mail. Like, that's how I got onto the big desk and, how I got included in the political, like, interviews or whatever. So, yeah, just went on from there. Alright, this is book 2, The Serpent's Kiss, chapter 11, Terese. Terese was bored. Everyone in the party had a role. The soldiers were soldiering, standing in formation in groups of 4 around the general encampment. Stargazer and the captain were discussing philosophy or tactics or whatnot. Grundle and Portillion seemed intent on discussing the most boring aspects of space flight or technology or something. Terese found herself wishing she could grab Portillion and drag him away from the group. Then he would ravage and molest her the way he had in the early days of their courtship. It was amazing the transformation he could make when the spirit took over his body. Terese knew the second port came in through her window that he was haunted. She hadn't cared then, and she didn't care now. She wanted him, and whatever the creature was that made him want her was voracious, decisive, and powerful. She'd caught a glimpse of it once or twice, obscured but clearly visible. You drink some water, got a bunch of sounds. Is that the dishwasher in the background? Oh, got some more ASMR. You got me sniffing the whole thing. She'd caught a glimpse of it once or twice, obscured but clearly visible. Once in a mirror, again in the polished metal of an antique shield, she'd seen it. A nasty, ogreish being with burgundy skin, snakes for hair, long claws, and wickedly sharp canines. Its eyes were calm and cool, but mad at times as well. It might have been a ghostly efreet wearing an oddly shifted shape, or something truly ancient and horrible. It was attached to Portillion somehow, by what mechanism she had yet to uncover. Therese had made friends with it, milked it for information, used it to indulge her own sexual desire, and when it was done, she let Portillion touch her however he liked. He was a very nice boy, an idiot in many ways, but a useful one. Hell yes. That is the good Therese Terusian. She is something else. Oh man. Get used to, get comfortable with her. She's gonna be around a while. Chapter 12. Reynold. The party was relaxing on the grass, stretching their sore muscles, hydrating, bullshitting, and generally enjoying this idyllic landscape. It turned out that the tower, or tree, was ringed by acres of interesting terrain. A village of sorts clung to the sides of the pillars or stalks, but most of the area was pastoral, untouched by cultivation or development. It was refreshing to see such a beautiful setting unspoiled by human refuse. Captain Stargazer strolled through the crowd, inspecting his troops. Andros, clean up this mess. We're not Andros, clean up this mess. We're not Philistines. We're not Philistine. We're not Philistines. We are guests in this land, not interlopers. He marched by as Andros tidied up his spot. The soldier closest to him gave him a look that said, "You're a pig, Andros." Reynold knew the power of a well-placed critique. It wasn't always necessary, but when it came to soldiers, or really any lower level employee, it was important to occasionally remind them who was in charge. I don't know why my nose is itchy. I took my allergy pill for the day. Grundle was tinkering. Reynold was pleased that Ayanna had found such a charming and relaxing person to serve as her guardian. So many religious types Reynold had met were humorless and unappealing. Grundle, on the other hand, was a delight. He could be dull at times. Talk about technology didn't appeal to Reynold, but he was generally always polite and reasonably interesting without being a show off. He even displayed a sense of humor if one could crack his stony exterior. Ayanna was insufferable as always. He knew she'd been right about him. He'd been a drunk and a gambler, a waste of good breeding, but that was over now. He was a new man, committed, a man prepared to do what it takes to cement the Stargazer name in Lunari history. His mother's cruelty had pushed him into a tailspin of selfishness and self-contempt. Now he was pulling himself out of it. If Ayanna gave him enough time, he knew she would see firsthand the evidence of his transformation. Portillion was an enigma. His power was great, anyone could see that, but he was young and far too self-assured for Reynold's taste. Therese was a supremely attractive young woman, but there was something about her that worried him. Something in the eyes, the way she looked at him, as if he were a flea she hadn't decided to pick off just yet. When their eyes met, he felt her interest. It was unsettling. Strange that that sort of woman would choose to join the priesthood. He walked up to Martok and slapped him on the back. Martok looked up with a glare that instantly shifted into a smile. Captain! Martok, you showed heart out there. Not every soldier would have stepped into those rings without flinching. It's good to have you at the tip of the spear. Martok started to rise, but Reynold encouraged him to remain seated. Martok started to rise, but Reynold encouraged him to remain seated. No need for that, sir. You have taught me a lesson in leadership today. A true champion does not waver in the face of danger. Martok bowed his head. Thank you, Captain. Reynold smiled and moved. I almost said mowed. Reynold smiled and moved down the line. Captain. The voice slid into his ears like syrup onto a butter cake. He turned to see the beautiful spirit woman hovering a few yards away. The troops stared in awe. May I have a word? Reynold stood up straight, trying not to scan her cleavage. She was a rare creature, to be sure. This mission was proving to be more difficult than he'd anticipated. Yes, my lady. How may I assist you? She placed a hand on his shoulder and walked him to the edge of the camp. He waited for her soft voice to speak. She smiled. Captain, some of my people wish to meet you. Our leader, Mr. Hannawalt, would like you to join them in the plaza. She pointed a finger to a gap through tall hedges, a beautiful elm and fountain faintly visible through the sparkling sunlight. Man. Mouth is dry. I know you're all thinking, well, you're drinking coffee, smoking, smoking weed. What do you think's going to happen? I'll eat some cheese on the air, too. Beautiful elm and fountain, faintly visible through the sparkling sunlight. Reynold pondered this new information. His men were watching, as were the heroes. A moment passed. Reynold nodded gravely. Tell Mr. Hannawalt we are excited to meet him. Which direction is this plaza? She pointed an alabaster arm in the direction of a gazebo, just outside the village on a small grass-covered hill. A pair of jugglers were practicing their trade a few dozen yards away. Reynold turned back to Martok. He tapped the edge of his helmet and strode towards his horse. He slid his sword belt out of his saddle. He slid his sword belt out of his saddlebags and handed it to his second, a handsome young soldier. He slid his sword belt out of his saddlebags and handed it to his second, a handsome young shoulder. Motherfucker. a handsome young soldier by the name of Gillimer. Reynold whistled. Men, listen up. Martok and I are to meet with the village chieftain. You will stay here, weapons at the ready. In the event we are attacked, you will bring all necessary force to bear. Protecting our allies' lives are paramount. None of us are more vital to this mission than they. Patting Gillimer on the back, he stepped out to join Martok on the road. Sergeant! Bring all necessary firepower. The last thing we want is an easy death. Martok hefted up his heavy rifle and slung it over his back, the band of clips clattering as they bounced off his massive Martok headed. Martok hefted up his heavy rifle and slung it over his back, the band of clips clattering as they bounced off his massive shoulders and chest. I don't know if the font is too small or what. Maybe it's just reading early in the day, like I'm not warmed up. Let's say that. Or maybe it's just hard to read. Clips clattering. The priestess girl watched Reynold the length of his walk to the vine covered gate that marked the entrance to the village. He felt her eyes on him as he turned his back. He wasn't sure if it was in his head or not, but he knew he'd seen that look on her face before. In his own expression, perhaps, when he was planning his next drink or shuffling a deck of cards. It was a look he'd seen in the faces of those he'd partied with, people he'd watched die of that subtle, insidious disease they called addiction. It sent him back into a strange and not quite unpleasant reverie. His deep breathing kept him moving and in a straight line. Feelings, even those this intense, were never feelings this intense were never to be shown to anyone, except perhaps a woman or a best friend. Reynold had neither close to hand. Martok was the next best thing to a friend, but in truth he was his subordinate, and therefore unable to fully grant his loyalty. Reynold sighed. He sighed a lot since giving up his vices. Not for the first time did he feel the awesome weight of his sobriety. He prayed that he might cross this chasm and make it to the other side. If that was, there were another side. Should it be was? But then I'm saying was twice in a row. If that was, there was another side. Oh, man. If there were another side, that sounds weak. I don't know. I'll work on it. I just want to say the stuff about addiction is for real. That's that's how it feels a lot of the time. The sighing, the like trying to get your bearings. And also, if you're into romance, that look when somebody's like, "I'm gonna get that one," and that's Therese. She's gonna get what she wants. I think I'm gonna share this on Twitter. That's what I'll do. Share on the Twitter. Yo, dig it. I bet I look really dumb while I'm reading and typing. All right. Let's see. 20 minutes. I'll do one more. Chapter 13. Portillion. Trying to figure out who's asking. Is it Portillion? Yeah. My lord, I would ask you to follow my lead, just for this first interaction. Captain Stargazer squinted at Portillion, sniffed, then nodded. Beside him, Martok stiffened and growled lowly, squeezing the handle of his many-dented warhammer. Oft-dented? Many doesn't make sense. Portillion waved over to Aeona. Sister, we go to meet the villagers. We shall need your insight. What he meant was they'd need her ability to suss out lies. Aeona walked in their direction, waving Grundle away. Portillion had noticed a change in their relationship ever since Grundle had taken up the shield. She seemed to treat him more like a servant than a brother. Portillion wondered if he should say something. Don't be a fool, Port. Last thing you want to do is make that woman angry. Last thing you want to do is make that woman angry. He chuckled to himself, then quickly... He chuckled to himself, then quickly adopted a grave expression. Aeona reached them and held out her hand. Reynold took it. They stood there for an uncomfortably long time, as if the weight of years of animosity were slowly cooling bit by bit. Then she leveled her gaze on Portillion. So what's the play here? Portillion explained as best he could. From what I've gathered from my research and direct observation, these people are less, he struggled to find the words, present than people from our realm. They exist in a kind of temporal stasis. He noticed the captain's confused expression. Temporal refers to time. Essentially, these beings live each day as if it had never ended. They eat and sleep and even work a bit, but life has no stakes, no weight, nothing to ground them in the concerns and troubles that ordinary humans experience. This may make them very reluctant to interact with us, as we literally have nothing that they want. He paused to let this sink in. Our best course of action, as I see it, is to simply be friendly, follow their rules, and stick to the pathways they define for us. If there are any dangers here, they will only manifest if we, he waved his hand towards the soldiers, anger them or cause them to be afraid. If we are respectful of their traditions, I believe we shall be able to pass through their village without incident. The captain straightened his metals, ran a hand through his hair, and lifted his eyes to take in the strange horizon. Sister, let's go meet our new friends. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I love Portillion will just do a big long speech. I don't know if any of y'all have ever seen Star Trek Discovery, but he's got real Michael energy, like he should be in charge. He's got a chip on his shoulder and he loves to hear himself talk. All right. Come on back next time. Chapter 14, Reynold. Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but if you'll notice, this is all underground. Haven't done anything with Jorn, with Joss, Numerius, Phaline, Maki, Sophris, probably some other people back topside. So yeah, eventually we'll get back there. I'm trying something a little different with this book. All right. I'm gonna take a quick break to replenish my fluids, and then I will be back. Peace.